This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 194. Rick Paddock on MindFlipping.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
It's an amazing thing when you could take your own personal experience, those things that you were doing before you got into hypnosis, and then bring that into the work that you're now doing. And it's part of why I'm so excited to have Rick Paddock finally on the program. We go back a number of years by way of the HypnoThoughts live convention and chatting and hanging out online, of course, too. And Rick is also a fellow podcaster. He does an outstanding program called MindFlipping, which you can check out on iTunes or anywhere else that podcasts are available. We'll link to it in the show notes, of course, over here at the WorkSmartHypnosis.com website. And taking his previous experience of everything from a chance encounter with a hypnotic version of Neil Diamond, transitioning then to making use of a hypnotic process to make his own personal change, to then reaching out, learning the process, and coming from a background flipping houses and now working as a person who helps to mind flip those who are ready to be mind flipped. Not necessarily calling that in his Milwaukee Hypnosis Center office, yet looking at it from the perspective of how do we take something, renovate it, and make it work even better in a client-centered way. There's some amazing takeaways in this conversation too, in terms of the value of content marketing, the value of really putting yourself out there, and a really cool strategy too of getting out there and talking about the work that you do in such a way that really inspires people to ask more questions and really get involved with the work that you do. We're going to link to Rick's various websites and the podcast once again over at WorkSmartHypnosis.com. And speaking of working smart, once again, head over to WorkSmartBusiness.com. That is the launch page for my upcoming book, Work Smart Business, where I chronicle the narrative in terms of how I've launched multiple six-figure businesses in this little tiny niche, and using that as a story to help become a catalyst and inspiration for people of all sorts of business approaches. So you can join the launch team over at WorkSmartBusiness.com. If you're listening to this before January 22nd, that's your opportunity to get a free digital copy of the book before it actually launches. If you're listening afterwards, that'll probably redirect over to Amazon to purchase the book online. We're gathering a whole team of people to help launch this project and get it out there to an amazingly large audience. Though if you need help specifically with your hypnosis business, of course, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. That's the entire digital access library to my what I did to launch my business, as well in many ways my what's working now access. So it's everything from done for you marketing campaigns to step-by-step tutorials. And you're able to get started with just $47 of an investment to see exactly how I've built a six-figure business that scales year after year. Join today at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And with that, let's jump directly into this outstanding conversation. Take some notes, put these strategies to use. This is session number 194, Rick Paddock on MindFlipping.
Yeah, my first experience, I guess I haven't shared it a whole lot before, was I think I was a young teen, maybe 13 or 14. My family, we took a trip out to California and saw a hypnotist at Knott's Berry Farm, and was fascinated by the things that were happening. And I guess the one thing that really stands out is the guy who, upon the suggestion of he is now his favorite performer, jumped into Sweet Caroline from Neil Diamond. And I wasn't a Neil Diamond fan until then. He got the crowd rocking, so it was pretty cool. And kind of filed it away in the back of my mind. And then I guess fast forward, maybe 40 years, maybe a little bit less. And I needed some help in my life. I needed some help with direction, and a friend of mine who's a pastor at the church that he used to be a pastor of and that I used to go to invited me in to share some coach training that he got, and it took me through what he would probably to this day not call a hypnosis session. He called it a visualization session, but it was a hypnosis session. There was the induction and the deepener, the suggestive part, and the awakening, and it was really powerful, and it helped me get some clarity about the next part of my life.
Yeah. So then having that experience, which I love that the story, begins with something that was not the style of hypnosis that you've now ended up mostly making use of, that many of us, I mean, that was my first introduction. I do have to highlight that you did say you weren't a Neil Diamond fan until then, which now builds the presupposition you're the massive raving fan, yes?
Of course.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Who isn't?
I mean, Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show is coming to town. So looking at the experience of,
Awesome.
I know there's a deep cut. So there's the experience of, having the personal change though. There's the other side of it that you had the audience perspective, but then the client perspective. As you think back to it and, filter it now through the years of experience, seeing clients, going through trainings, what would you say it was about that actual experience why it was able to help you, if you had to really unpack that?
Yeah, which experience? The first, the second, both?
The second, actually being the client of that.
Yeah, and so this friend of mine had recently become certified as a coach and was sharing with me how powerful this process was of coaching as opposed to his traditional pastoral counseling, which was, digging up the past and, let's talk about your parents, and how when he applied these coaching processes, which is very much what we do in hypnosis, what's happening now that you don't like, and where would you rather be? What does that look like, feel like, taste like, and all that good stuff. So it took me into a session, and I got clarity about where I wanted to go. Basically, it was a future self session. And the lights kind of went on. It actually took me to both the fields of coaching and hypnosis, helped clarify a lot of things, my values, my strengths, my goals, really in a powerful way that a lot of us in this field see pretty quickly.
Yeah. So from there, what was that next step in terms of, getting it in motion and starting to learn this?
Yeah. So the next step was he referred me to his coach, teacher, trainer. I worked with her, got certified as a coach, started a business as a coach. My little niche was the name of my business was Purpose Focused Coaching. And I kind of narrowed it down a little bit towards guys, men like my age who are going through transition, perhaps divorce, perhaps career change, life change, and found it was really difficult to market. You go to a networking group and saying you're a coach is kind of like saying you're a life insurance agent. There's, their eyes kind of glaze over and, another one. And I had, little success, little being the key word. And then recognized that some of that training that I got in my coach training revolved around these hypnotic processes. And at this point, I didn't really know that it had all the structure of hypnosis. But when I look back with my clients on our breakthroughs in our work together, it always came back to those hypnotic experience, whether it was more formal hypnosis or maybe even some NLP processes. And so I decided to learn more about it and got certified, got my original training with Dr. Richard Nongard. And the key original training, as all of us know, that training never stops. And changed my business name. I took his advice when I was looking at my business about naming it geographically based, changed it to Milwaukee Hypnosis. And as much as I struggled finding coaching clients, immediately people were signing up to work with me, and there was no free introductory call. There was no, me explaining coaching. They didn't even often know what hypnosis was, but they had this sense that it could help them quit smoking, lose weight, get over anxiety. So it was a really cool flip. And now I combine both of them, coaching and hypnosis.
And I mean, to look at it, we can talk about hypnosis as that formal process of come in, close your eyes, let me now move through my induction, my deepeners, now into the actual change work. The further anybody gets into all of this, the more we start to realize the entire process is hypnosis. The entire process is that hypnotic suggestion. So to look at that, how do you mentally draw that line as to when you're in that coaching mode versus that hypnosis mode?
Well, there is no real line.
Yeah.
It's always hypnosis, as you said. Um, but the clients do expect, they kind of want, they love all right, let's do the way I describe it to pretty much all of my clients is, are you ready for the fun, easy part? And yeah, they want that. They want the little mental vacation to get away. So whether we're working in my office or whether we're working over Zoom or over the phone, we do the conversational hypnosis. What's been working, what do we need to tweak, and then we hop into, not always, but usually more, typical formal hypnosis, and strengthen, that which they want to go to, and release, erase, eliminate that which they're looking to erase. And the cool thing is, the more we do it, my clients recognize it changes from often where it was in the first session. So I try to give them a little bit more typical, the induction, maybe some eye lock, maybe some phenomenon in the first session, but pretty quickly we go to skipping deepeners, and the induction is not anything that somebody would call a typical induction. It's pretty quick, and we get to that suggestive part pretty quickly.
Yeah. So from that model, I wanted to come back to the fact that you mentioned working with clients in an office, but also online. Let's spend some time on that in terms of modifying the process to be just as effective, whether someone's in the room or thousands of miles away. How do you approach that online side of the work?
Yeah, I think it's just, laying expectations, whether it's somebody who's worked with me in the office originally or never before. Some of them, need a little bit of hand-holding as to, how can this work, online, whether it is Skype or whether they've got their headphones in or the phone next to their ear. Once they go through it, and it's just, again, a little bit, perhaps in that first one, walking through, holding their hand and helping them identify that whether we're in the same room or whether we're across the world, we can still get the same results. And after the first one, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a strategy of framing that, here's something that's perhaps not exactly what their first expectation was, and presenting the process in such a way that, yes, this is just as viable. Are there ways that you're modifying, let's say, the work that you're actually doing on top of that?
Not a whole lot,
Yeah.
Not really a whole lot. There's not a lot. I rarely, I've never done any element type inductions. I rarely do, physical touching. Just occasionally I'll show them. If they're in their office, we'll set some anchors. But most of those things, as you know, we can walk them through and allow them to do it over the phone. So there's not a whole lot that we have to change.
Yeah. I'd share a bit of a connection there, that years ago I had one style of working if the client was in the room, and I had a different style if they were, by way of video conference, which was often, here's the referral from a client in the office, here's someone who found me online. And really what it came down to was that online experience was just a more streamlined version of the process, which was getting the same result. So instead, that became how I worked everywhere.
Yeah, that sounds very similar. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting. Once you see the results and how easy and how fluid it can be online, you start incorporating that into the office. I'd agree.
Yeah. So is there you mentioned starting off working with men with, sort of more personal issues. Is there a specific focus of your work nowadays?
Among the focuses, I guess that I end up working with, as is the case for many people in this industry, more women than men, probably 3 out of 4. And a little niche that I've kind of developed, I believe that, like attracts like, and somehow, some way, the universe sends people to me that are like me. One of the niches that those who know me have seen and heard me talk about is sensitive or introverted people, men and women, whether they're business people that I've met at networking groups locally that are trying to figure out how to grow their business in a what may be considered a loud extroverted world, or whether they come to me because they're sensitive and introverted and extra sensitive to anxiety. So I help a lot of people with anxiety. And gosh, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking probably 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 are those people who come to me for some form of anxiety. To some recently had a couple of actually men for, in their words, white coat syndrome, nervous about getting to the doctor and having their blood pressure checked, and some young athletes, a lot of them are sensitive, in some ways, and that the work I do with them ends up being just reminding them that this which brought them that anxiety, their extra sensitivity, is the gift that can help them get out of it. And so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, what I love about that is the phrasing, and to use the superhero line of using those powers for good. It's the same part of the mind getting you into that challenge that we're going to use to get you out of it too.
Yep, and you see a little bit of the light bulbs go on, and it's like, really? And then once they experience it, it's really cool. And then they perhaps for many of them for the first time are stepping into a real acceptance of who they are, of these things that in the past they considered liabilities are superhero strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there a certain style, a certain approach? Let's look at it from the user experience, that someone's now coming in to work with you, let's say for anxiety. What is it that they're about to experience?
So we do, typically in the first session, we kind of lay the groundwork. We kind of look at, again, what's happening that's not working. What is anxiety to you, physically, emotionally, through all modalities. And if you didn't have that, what does that look like? And sometimes that takes a while to kind of ferret out and get them to identify. Among the things that we end up doing in our work together are, I try to give all of my clients kind of a toolbox of self-help, self-care strategies so that they can reinforce the changes that are being made or introduced in our sessions, in between our sessions. So things from emotional detox to bilateral stimulation. And really I see more and more for, so many people, and including and especially those who are more sensitive, mindfulness is just a wonderful thing to learn and to practice regularly. And among the things that I try to reinforce and impress upon my clients on that end is you don't need to commit to 15 minutes of mindfulness meditation or even 5 minutes. Just get in the habit and the practice of being mindful throughout your day, and it'll have a cumulative effect on releasing these anxieties. And so that's a big part of what we do.
Is there a story that comes to mind of working with someone and arming them with these strategies and, getting feedback in terms of that being a big part of the benefit?
Yeah, I guess one that kind of immediately pops into mind was a woman who came to me. I think she drove probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours to see me, and her anxiety was, in her words, she was a hypochondriac. She worried about every little thing, every tickle in her throat, every cough, every sniffle. And
those usually are the symptoms of hypochondriacs.
Yes.
Bad joke, sorry.
Top ones, yes. And then, the next step is you get online and figure out what that little lump is there, or that little bump or that pimple, and it could be anything. And then she had kids. If I remember right, she had a couple of young kids, and she recognized that now she was fearing their health. And she was such a prisoner to those intrusive thoughts and those ruminations that she feared that her kids were going to have that same, that same liability, if you will. And so she, I think we worked together maybe 6 times, and every time, she came back with stories of relief, of stepping out of her comfort zone, of noticing shifts. And in our final session, we kind of reviewed everything. And for her, the breakthrough, or the one self-care, self-help tool that she turned to was bilateral stimulation. And when I share it in my office, I have a number of things. I've got little squishy little animals, kind of like stress balls, and we use those for a few different things. I think at that time I had like a polished stone that would just kind of fit in the palm of my hand, and I had her use that. Well, she went out and bought one, and she said that process of bilateral stimulation helped her to the point where she got that little stone, and she would pull it out if she felt those anxieties creeping in, and pass it from one hand and swing it out to the side, and hand it off in the middle and swing it out to the side. And to the point where she could just touch the stone and her anxiety would wash away, and then to just where she could look at the stone and that her mind would flip in an instant. And pretty cool.
It's highlighting something beautiful. I love that she could just look at it and get that result. That often describing the process is really running the process.
Yep.
So I've taken to like the emotional detox, it's collapsing anchors. Anchor on one hand that's a negative, the other hand is a positive. Fire them both off. I give it more of a get ready nowadays for that exact reason, that nowadays I'd get the feedback from a client. Yeah, after a few times, I could just squeeze both hands and I already had the result. Or I thought about using the technique and I immediately felt better.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And how our mind can play that so quickly and instantly, what it's already learned. It's like, all right, been there, done that, next thing.
Right. Which really is helping to establish, I mean, the critic of such a strategy would go, yeah, but you're giving them something they have to do the rest of their life. And, these are examples where someone's creating that new pattern in their mind, creating that new outcome to the point where they've established that new rhythm, that new ritual.
Yeah. Yep. And I tell my clients when I give them these tools is, these are tools for you to pull out as you see fit. And some of these you may never use. There's probably going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 that you use quite a bit. And then eventually you're not going to need to pull that tool out at all because the work's been done and you're just going to leave it in that toolbox.
Yeah. So then working with people, what's sort of that process in terms of, you mentioned doing 6 sessions is what I'm getting at here. How is it you judge with the client, let's say when they've graduated?
Yeah, it's a conversation back and forth, and it's, I got to admit, it's something I'm still working on in my mind and in my business. I'm in a bit of transition. I'm trying to find the best way to serve the client, long term. And so now the conversation is, all right, this has been done. Are we all the way there? Does it make sense to work another 1, 2, or 3 sessions? And if we're all the way there, what's next? You've done this work, but if you're like me and if you're like most people in this world, there's a next thing to check off on your list. And so we have a conversation about that and looking at that work. But when I say I'm kind of in transition, I'm really trying to find that sweet spot, both from a client service side as well as from a business side of, I mentioned the challenge of coaching is, it's kind of a yawn. People don't understand what coaching is when you're marketing it, and it's hard for them to immediately see the result. You have to kind of get them to describe their ROI. So that's the challenge on coaching. The challenge as a hypnotist is our churn rate. We turn them over pretty quickly, and that's for a good coaching business, there's a low churn rate. They have people working with them for a long time. So I'm working through the process of trying to find a way to combine both of them so clients see, feel, and really buy into the benefit of working with us long term, and do it in a natural way.
I'd share the experience of just simply presenting that as an option.
Yeah.
Is really all it took on the business side for me, that, here's a person that I saw there was some benefit to. And I'm always looking at, this is coming from someone who will look at a client when the stop smoking guy says, can I book a 6-month follow-up? And to his benefit, I'll look at him and say, why? You're not going to be smoking. What else do I need to say to you about this? If there's something else you'd like to be working on, why don't we go ahead and take care of that now, though? But it's me looking at every strategy of turning down that opportunity, the shoot yourself in the foot business model, as Jerry Kind used to say, of using it in that model, but instead this opportunity that this is what we can continue working on. Now that we've taken down that fear, we can now shift into a performance enhancement mode where it's one part working on the actual, performance of public speaking, but at the same time, I'll be sharing with you some, hypnotic language patterns to help you to become more influential. And now we've got some momentum. Now we've got something we can actually keep at.
Yeah, I love it. You're right.
Rather than 50 sessions of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, give them the option, and I love it. The option of what's next, and in some cases I've metaphorically broken out the life wheel. All right, so we've covered this area. Are there anything on the, in our work together, I heard you talk about some work that needs to be done in relationship or spiritually, and so that's another way to look at continuing the fun that we're having.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to bring the conversation, of course, to the concept of mind flipping.
Mind flipping. I like that.
You should do something with that. Yeah.
Let's run with that. Yeah. Where should we go with this?
If you had to define mind flipping as a concept.
All right. I love it. So mind flipping is a term that I came up with for my podcast, the Mind Flipping podcast. Thanks for bringing it up. And for me, it was a natural term. It's I transitioned from being a house flipper to being a mind flipper, and the transition came, the fulcrum point, if you will, was that hypnosis session I had with my pastor friend. And I was a real estate investor, house flipper, and when the market turned in 2007 here in the Midwest, in the Milwaukee area, I needed to find a new direction, and that's what led me to the coaching and hypnosis, and recognized as I was putting the podcast together, and my dream as I was trying to come up with the title was I really wanted to find a way, as we've kind of touched on today, to get hypnotists to realize the benefit of coaching, and coaching to realize the benefits of hypnosis and NLP and meditation, and getting all of these, which in some ways are separate schools, to kind of come together. And those of us who've been doing it for a while, end up using all of those and are familiar with them. But I kind of wanted to make sure that the general population of the world learned about all of these ways to renovate and update our minds and lives. And so I recognize that's really what we do as coaches, as hypnotists, as NLP practitioners. We help our clients renovate and update their minds and lives, just like a contractor or a homeowner would renovate and update their house to get better value out of it. So, yeah, the Mind Flipping podcast was born, and gratefully I've had a number of awesome practitioners, including you, Jason. Yes.
Thank you. I got a golden pig out of it.
That's right. The guinea pig that you are.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's been great fun, and I learned so much from all of my guests. I get great feedback from our listeners. It's fantastic. I just love it.
Yeah, and of course we'll put links in the show notes here to check out the Mind Flipping podcast. I'd ask you, I wanted to bring that up though, for the concept of you were utilizing part of your backstory, part of your background, and that mindset of this is something I used to do, which is kind of like what I'm doing now, just in a different format. I mean, to look at so many people that even interact with, whether it's your program, my program, or really any hypnosis training, they seem to always be just on that cusp of getting started. What would you say that catalyst was for you? I mean, yes, you had the personal transformation, yet there then had to be the task of getting out there and talking about what you did.
Yeah, the steps I took were, on the hypnosis side, it was, well, I guess I should go back a little bit. On the coaching side, it was networking. It was getting out and network, talk to people, and even in this business, if the clients aren't flowing through, I come back to three letters, TTP. I need to be talking to people. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's putting on a talk, I'll be putting on a presentation to a local business group, probably about, 60 or 70 people next Friday, or whether it's networking, or whether it's talking to people through the power of the internet. That's what we need to be doing. We need to put ourselves out there. So I've always understood that. So from the coaching perspective, it was networking, it was, putting on talks. And then from the hypnosis side, the business name really helped. It was having a decent website. It was having the ability for people to get hold of me. I have heard consistently that unfortunately, and I'm sure our listeners and you can attest to this, sometimes our competitors, I guess gratefully for us, don't return phone calls. And so I'll return a phone call, and it's like, oh, it's nice that you called. I've been waiting for this other person and haven't heard. So giving them the ability to talk to us and explain it. And so my strategy up front is really, the same as it is now. It's getting out and talking to people, whether it's online through even the podcast or videos or locally.
I call that success in spite of their efforts, where so many people in business is even there's a contractor that I'm having to deal with the project with the ongoing repair issue at my office right now. I'm about to later today send the message that says, I'm sending this for the third time. Could you at least respond with at least I don't know.
Please let me know you're alive.
Right. Yeah. Is everything okay? Do we need to hire another contractor as a search party? So to look at, again, just the simple nature of doing good business, being out there talking about what you do and responding to people and keeping that follow up. When you were doing the networking, is that something that you were going out there and being specific to one type of issue, talking in more general terms? What did you find to be effective in those communities?
Yeah, I guess it was talking in general terms. I liken it to the kind of the volleyball approach. You start big and you let them ask questions and then respond. And if you see an opportunity to narrow down to get more specific, and that could very early on include recognizing that no, that's not something I do. We're not going to be a good fit. Whether it's a specific area in hypnosis or coaching. But yeah, I guess my approach has always been start a little bit more general, volley it back to them, listen to how they respond, listen to their story a little bit, and see if it's a good fit. And if it is, get a little bit more deeper into my specialties.
And check out the Hypnotic Volleyball podcast, which is going to be launching in January. Never mind.
Right.
So what would be an example of one of those volleyball statements?
Oh, good question. I guess it would be, that's another great thing about combining both coaching and hypnosis, whereas the coaching conversation and networking group can bring a yawn. You talk about hypnosis and they'll probably 8 or 9 out of 10 times it'll be eyes wide open, tell me more. And as you know, there's the occasional cover their eyes and and walk away. But then pausing and letting them ask the next question, because often it'll be about a question about themselves or somebody that they know. Like, so could it help with bedwetting? Could it help with anxiety? These things make me nervous. And if you just pause and give them space and let them ask the next question, it's amazing what will come out.
So the classic question that we all get, I want to hear your response. Does that actually work?
That's how I respond. And I'll say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I've just been in business for 10 years, but yes, it does work. Yeah. How do you answer that, Jason?
Mine is, okay, let's role play it. You're a different profession and I'm forcing you to be creative on the spot. Well, what do you do for a living, Rick?
Yeah, I sell life insurance.
Okay. Does that actually work? And yes, I really do that. And it just completely, and they usually, apologize in a friendly way. That's not a confrontational way of letting it play out. But to go, well, yeah, I've been at this now for going on about 10 years full time, just seeing clients, and I wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't. And I'd usually then pull out some sort of recent client story to go, well, just the other day, here's someone who came in, this was their challenge, and they reported their feedback as, and then give the case study.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's also the place of, I think you and I talked about this at one point. I'm flashing back to, I don't engage the conversation of belief that we've got enough research, we've got enough studies of neuroscience, yes, that all say different things, but there's enough data out there to say that, yes, this is a thing, and yes, it works. So the conversation of belief is about 40 or 50 years out of date.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you're describing that, I guess, I've answered that question in different ways. I can remember somebody asking me something similar and following up with, well, why do you ask? And again, they're thinking about something, about some area, and it might just be, it just seems so weird. And then, jumping into, about research or, it's actually been helping people in areas such as, smoking, weight loss, anxiety for many years. And there are many published studies. So, yeah.
Which, without
But-
really having to be clever, what we're both talking about here is leading with education, leading with here's what the process is, here's how it works, and putting it out there for the people to then make that informed decision.
Yep. Yeah. And the other common question, of course, is, you're not going to make me bark, are you, or cluck? And I don't remember who I heard it from, but my answer is typically, well, I can, but you'll have to pay me extra.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then looking at the shape of combining together, a media project of doing a podcast, has that assisted in getting you clients?
Yeah, I think it has. I can't say that it's, torn the roof off, too much, but my business is at a really nice place right now. And I find often that it's just another great resource. I keep a little stack of my postcards in my office, lenticular printed postcards. That's right. I was trying to come up with a name where, depending on how you look at it, you go from the under construction mind to the peaceful, happy mind. Mm-hmm. And I'll give it to my clients and I'll say, check out this podcast. And if I'm really good, I'll remember the episode. Or I'll just refer them to certain episodes. And so it's been a great resource for my clients as to stories that have been shared, strategies that have been shared. And so if nothing else, it gives me, great credibility.
That's what I was going to bring it up for, that to have some sort of ongoing media project, whether it's a podcast, whether it's blogging, whether it's putting up a video every now and then on YouTube or doing a Facebook Live, whatever the platform is and whatever it's going to become a few years from now, it's that opportunity for people to build rapport with you. And I've had people come to me as a result of this program. It usually begins with, yeah, I found your podcast. I don't think I'm the audience. Because you do a different style of program, which is appealing to. If you had to just find your audience, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think my audience, the best that I can tell, is a mix of professionals, practitioners in those different areas I mentioned: hypnosis, NLP, coaching, psychology, psychotherapy, and people, quote unquote, the layperson who recognizes that there is great power in their mind, and the little things that we share, or the big things that we share, help them. So I think it's a mix. But the commonality is people who are fascinated with the mind and believe in the power of our mind to create, greatness.
Yeah. So to borrow, I believe what may be a familiar question, to give yourself a hypnotic suggestion back to when you started. The old, if I knew then what I know now, how would you have done things different along this journey?
Podcast journey or everything?
Everything journey.
That's a great question, because I really, throughout my life, try not to shoot on myself or think, I should have done this, but if I could have, maybe start the podcast earlier, or at least, to your point, consistently put out content in some way. My goal when I started the podcast was to do just that, to be consistent, to kind of put my head down and somehow, some way to keep doing it. My initial goal was 200 episodes. So we're coming up on episode 60. And so I've got a long way to go, and come hell or high water, I'm gonna get there, and hopefully it'll go much, much beyond that. But if I would have, I guess if anything is earlier on, find a way to just get it on the calendar, get it in my, regular activities to produce content.
Yeah. So then how has doing the podcast, let's say, informed your local business in terms of how you're now approaching, getting out into that community, reaching more people? So
interesting, the way that the podcast has is, you said, as it affected the business. My business is busy. It's going very well, to the point where I'm looking to incorporate, another practitioner in the business. And my goal is to pull away a little bit more from the one-on-one in-office client work, to let another practitioner or two do that, and do more work online, more traveling, more getting out and meeting with all the people in this community in person, and kind of to take the show on the road.
Outstanding. So speaking of that, Rick, how can people find you online?
So they can find me at mindflipping.com. My training, the training aspect, I do train and certify new hypnotists, is through midamericahypnosis.com, or here in the Milwaukee area, Milwaukee Hypnosis Center.com.
Outstanding. Well, Rick, it's been awesome having you on here. I'm a regular listener to your podcast and definitely endorsing that for these folks out here too.
Right back at you. I love yours. I love all the work that you do, not only with the podcast, but all the resources that you offer us as the guinea pig that you are.
And the Hypnotic Mutual Love Fest continues. Thanks for being on here.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for leaving your reviews online, sharing this on your social media streams, and let's share the stage on this one. Check out Rick Paddock's MindFlipping podcast. Head over to WorkSmartBusiness.com to get on the launch team for the book. And again, if you're looking to scale up your own specific hypnotic business, check out HypnoticBusinessSystems.com. Thanks for listening. See you on the inside.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.